Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to talk about something that shapes our society in ways we often don't even see: systemic racism. And no, it's not just about individual acts of hate, but about the very architecture of our institutions.
Okay, so let's dive right in by making a really crucial distinction here. On one side, you've got individual racism, the conscious prejudice, the overt stuff that's pretty easy to spot. But then there's systemic racism. And this is a whole different beast. It's actually woven into the fabric of our society's structures, its laws, and even its unwritten rules. And the tricky part? It often creates massive inequality even when no single person is acting with malicious intent.
To really get our heads around this system, we have to go back and look at its historical blueprints. The inequalities we see today, they didn't just pop up out of thin air. They were designed, and they were built over centuries.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how this slide kind of lays out that whole construction process. It all kicked off with colonialism and slavery, which created these hierarchies of people. Then, those hierarchies were justified with so-called scientific racial ideologies. After that, the modern nation-state came along and solidified these divisions with borders and laws. And that legacy? It's still with us today, embedded in the very institutions we deal with every single day.
And this is the thing. This isn't just ancient history. It's alive and kicking. And it's at its most powerful when a society claims to be colorblind. See, by ignoring these deep-rooted historical patterns, we accidentally give them a free pass to keep operating, shaping our present and our future.
So how does that historical blueprint actually play out in the systems we live in right now? Well, this is where it gets a little complicated, because the system can pump out discriminatory outcomes, often without a single person in the chain being overtly racist.
Systemic racism pretty much hides in plain sight in these really crucial parts of everyday life. It's there in who gets a callback for a job interview, which students get pushed towards higher education, who can get a loan for a house, who gets stopped by the police, and how different groups are shown in the media. And look, these aren't just one-off incidents. They form a pattern.
So the key here is that rules that look totally neutral on the surface can have deeply discriminatory effects. Check this out. Studies have shown that a job applicant with a name that doesn't sound German has a statistically lower chance of even getting an interview, even with the exact same qualifications. Or in schools, kids from a migrant background are way more likely to be guided toward lower educational tracks, even when their performance is just as good. That's not bad luck. That's the system at work.
And this becomes incredibly clear when we look at state institutions. Racial profiling is a textbook example, right? It's when police stop and check someone based on how they look, not on any actual suspicion of a crime. It's the very definition of institutional discrimination.
And this quote, wow, it just powerfully illustrates the corrosive effect this has on trust and on democracy itself. For the people who experience this, the state stops being a neutral protector of their rights. Instead, it becomes a source of fear and mistrust. And that completely shatters that core idea that we're all equal in the eyes of the law.
So what happens when you try to point all this out? Well, you often get a massive backlash. Specific political narratives pop up, and they're not designed to solve the problem. They're designed to deny it even exists and to protect the current power structures.
One of the most common arguments you'll hear is a total flip of reality. The claim is that the real victims of discrimination are actually people in the majority group. It's a tactic it tries to completely flip the script, turning perpetrators into victims.
Okay, so this narrative isn't just wrong, it's a politically dangerous tactic. It's designed to make exclusion seem legitimate, to downplay real inequality, and to attack the very foundation of democratic solidarity that holds a society together.
Another classic counter-argument you'll hear is that the folks who talk about racism are the ones causing all the division. It's a move that frames the critics, not the injustice itself, as the problem.
But let's be real, this is just a distraction tactic. It's an attempt to shut down necessary criticism and protect the status quo. It basically suggests that we should prefer a fake, quiet peace over the hard work of achieving real, actual justice.
So, faced with these deep-seated problems and the stories told to protect them, what's the democratic way forward? The answer isn't silence or denial. It's a commitment to being actively anti-racist.
And, Martin Luther King Jr.'s words here are just so key. The fight against systemic inequality isn't some niche issue for one particular group. It is absolutely central to the health and integrity of any just and democratic society.
And this is so important to get right. Analyzing systemic racism is not about pointing fingers or blaming individual people. It's a necessary analysis of the system itself so we can figure out how to improve it for everyone.
You see, A real democracy can't just sit on its hands. It has to actively work to dismantle these structures. That means we have to examine our institutions for bias, we have to collect the data to see where the inequality really is, we have to listen to the experiences of those who are most affected, and we have to critically reflect on who holds power and why.
So at the end of the day, being anti-racist isn't some radical or extreme position. It is a core requirement for a democracy that truly lives up to its own ideals of equality, the rule of law, and human dignity for all of its citizens.
Look, systemic racism was built, piece by piece, over centuries. It has to be named, analyzed, and overcome. And that leaves us with a final question, for all of us. A just society doesn't just happen on its own. It has to be built intentionally and continuously. What role are we going to play in that process?